welcome to The Explainer. All right, let's just jump straight into it today. Have you ever gotten that sudden, totally inexplicable chill when looking at something completely normal? I mean, maybe it's a stray dog, a lost kid on the side of the road, or honestly, even a close friend. Well, today we're unpacking a truly terrifying concept that comes straight from a series of chilling survivor accounts. We are looking at a predator that doesn't just hide in the shadows. No, it actually weaponizes our own human empathy right against us. Just listen to this account from one of the survivors. "My mom is coming, she's running." Now imagine that being delivered in a completely flat, deadpan voice by a seemingly innocent little boy sitting in the backseat of a car on a freezing, empty highway. It's just a bone-chilling quote, right? But it perfectly sets the tone for our analysis. This is all about that creeping dread of an innocent-looking form delivering an absolute nightmare right to your front door. And that brings us to the big question we're tackling today. What happens when a predator uses our own empathy as a trap? It completely flips our deepest, most human instincts upside down. So we're going to examine 3 distinct, honestly harrowing encounters from the source material to see exactly how these entities operate and, more importantly, what we can learn from them. But before we get into the stories, we kind of need to define the actual threat. We categorize a mimic predator as a hunting entity that basically weaponizes the uncanny valley. It perfectly imitates trusted forms, pets, kids, friends, to infiltrate, isolate, and capture its prey. The absolutely crucial point here is that we're not talking about some animal acting on mindless aggression. Nope, this is a highly calculated psychological ambush.
All right, let's move right into case 1, the stray dog, a daylight abduction.
What's really terrifying about this first account is that it didn't happen in some creepy dark woods. It was a daylight abduction in the middle of a busy shopping center. Notice the stark contrast in behaviors here. Normally, a stray dog avoids direct eye contact, maybe begs for food. But the mimic, well, a mother whose 10-year-old son, Eddie, was fascinated by this quote-unquote stray, noted the creature's completely unblinking focus and absolute silence. Later on, she actually observed an anatomy that totally defies biology. We're talking legs bent backward and twisted shoulders. It is the definition of that uncanny valley effect. Almost right, but just horrifyingly wrong. The nightmare really kicks in when this mother realized little Eddie was suddenly gone from her side. She frantically searched an adjacent dark alley and actually found his shoe. The climax of this whole encounter is just devastating. She ended up confronting this twisted, canine-like creature right there in the alley, and it had the exact same eyes as the dog from the parking lot. After attacking her arm, as it backed away, it literally spat out a small plastic dinosaur, dirty and wet. It was Eddie's toy. I mean, the psychological devastation of that exact moment, realizing what this thing had just done, is literally unimaginable. And that leads us to the bleakest reality of this entire case. The word missing followed every single report. The authorities never found Eddie. They never even classified him as deceased, which just left his mother in this perpetual state of unresolved grief. The mimic succeeded perfectly, didn't it? It isolated its target in plain sight, used a friendly disguise to lure him in, and then just vanished into the city. Moving on to case 2, the hitchhiker, an isolated highway. So here we see how the danger really escalates when the environment shifts to a dark, totally isolated rural highway late at night. A driver and his passenger, Carol, spot a lone boy on the road, and the anomalies are pretty much immediate. For one, the boy was entirely barefoot in the freezing cold, plus his arms hung completely straight down at his sides. When he eventually got into their car, he spoke in this weirdly flat, slow voice. He didn't blink, and he had incredibly shallow breathing. The driver actually noted that every single instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. But, human empathy, that absolute inability to just leave a kid stranded on a dark road, forced them to pull over and open the door anyway. And man, this brilliantly illustrates the trap, because while the boys sat perfectly quiet in the back seat, the real threat suddenly appeared outside. Look at the impossible anatomy of this pursuit. Unlike a normal animal that has a natural, bouncing sort of gait, the pursuer chasing their fleeing car was running on all fours, its body stretching and contracting impossibly. But here's the crazy part. Its head stayed perfectly level and locked onto their vehicle the whole time. It is a sheer physical impossibility, and honestly, it just induces pure panic. While that sheer terror led to a chaotic crash straight into a ditch. And as the car lay wrecked, the true nature of the boy in the back seat finally showed itself. Look at this visceral quote. Its limbs bent wrong, its shape shifted, skin pulling tight over moving bone. The boy actually let out a short laugh as he physically transformed right in front of the driver. The mimic wasn't just chasing them from the outside, a piece of it was already inside the car the whole time. Miraculously, though, the headlights of a passing truck suddenly flooded the scene. The truck actually hit the attacking creature at full speed, which saved Carol's life. But let's consider the aftermath for a second. The driver swore he hit a deer, and honestly, no one argued with him. The authorities very easily rationalized the trauma. It was just so much simpler to blame a common animal attack than to confront something absolutely impossible. But that left the driver burdened with carrying this terrifying truth completely alone. Which brings us to our third and probably most terrifying case file, Case 3, the campfire. Intimate infiltration. If the first two cases were about luring prey out, this one is all about the ultimate intimate infiltration among a close-knit group of friends camping out in a remote, signal-dead forest. Let's walk through this timeline together, because the rapid descent into total chaos is just wild. Okay, first, a friend named Leon goes out into the dark to gather some firewood. Second, the group hears these strange sounds and ends up finding a badly injured Leon out in the woods, so they drag him back to the safety of the fire. But then, step 3 happens. The real Leon bursts from the trees, totally unharmed, panicked, and screaming that something was chasing him. Which, of course, leads to step 4. The injured Leon, who is sitting right next to them, instantly drops the disguise and goes on the attack. So the crucial takeaway here is that the absolute terror wasn't just the physical monster itself. It's the fact that it wore their best friend's face perfectly. Think about it. The real Leon was unharmed, totally frantic and panicked. Meanwhile, the mimic Leon used a swollen face and these slow, broken words to completely manipulate the group. And honestly, the most chilling detail, it had perfectly calm, focused eyes during the actual attack. It essentially used their deep compassion for an injured buddy as a Trojan horse. The narrator of this account was actually pinned to the ground by the creature, totally paralyzed by its crushing weight. But then it got distracted by the real Leon shouting from the trees, and it simply shifted its focus. Read this quote with me. "It didn't rush. It didn't struggle. It took him like it had already decided this is how it would end." The narrator just had to watch helplessly as the mimic calmly grabbed their other friend Sean and dragged him out into the pitch-black woods. Sean was never found. Literally just like Eddie in our very first case file. The official police report simply claimed that Sean got lost in the woods. The mimic flawlessly executed its hunt. And once again, a completely inexplicable event was just neatly filed away as a mundane, everyday tragedy. All right, let's move to our final section, Rules of the Hunt, the methodology. Now that we've examined these 3 pretty chilling accounts, we can start to synthesize the actual methodology behind these shape-shifting predators. And it brilliantly illustrates their terrifying intelligence. Think of this as the predator's playbook. Step 1, isolate the target, whether it's a kid in an alley, a car on a lonely highway, or campers deep in the woods. Step 2, mimic an innocent form, a stray dog, a freezing child, a trusted friend. Then, step 3, wait for empathy to create an opening. They methodically use our very own humanity, our basic instinct to nurture and help, as the exact lock and key to our destruction. So what does this all mean? How do we actually empower ourselves against something like this? Well, here are some specific takeaways derived directly from the survivors. If something feels instinctively off, you need to look out for these uncanny valley warning signs. We're talking unblinking, fixed eye contact, incorrect backward bending joints, or strangely stretched skin. Or maybe they're mimicking voices or repeating sounds, almost like a recording. And flat, entirely emotionless responses. If your gut is screaming that the anatomy or the behavior just doesn't add up, you absolutely have to listen to it. Overriding your basic survival instinct just for the sake of politeness or empathy, well, it could literally be fatal. Because, as the survivor of that campfire attack realized, these things are not just mindless beasts. Take a look at this truly haunting quote. "Whatever took Sean learned enough, and it knows how to wait." These creatures are incredibly patient, they are constantly observant, and with every single encounter, whether they succeed or fail, they are adapting and learning exactly how to better mimic us. Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and to this final, deeply unsettling thought. After seeing just how easily our own empathy can be weaponized against us, and how perfectly these predators can wear a familiar face, look around you today. Are you absolutely sure you know who you're talking to? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Stay safe out there, always trust your instincts, and keep your eyes open.